Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Yates. I am the Strategic Communications Officer for the Ministry of Financial Services and Home Affairs. Today's press conference will be talking about the importance of the local registration of trademarks. You may be asking yourself, what are trademarks? You may be wondering, why is local registration important? Those questions and more will be answered during the course of today's press conference. Helping to explain all of that will be my esteemed panel this morning. We have, starting from the middle, we have the Honorable Tara Rivers, Minister for Financial Services and Home Affairs. To her left, we have the Honorable Moses Kekernel, the Deputy Premier and Minister for Tourism. And to my far right, we have the Chief Officer for the Ministry of Financial Services and Home Affairs, Dr. Dax Basdale. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce some of our technical experts who have been so integral to getting us to where we are today. To my left, we have Mr. Donnie Dixon from the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office. And we have our trademarks examiner, Ms. Candice Westby. And we have Mr. Abraham Thoppel, who is the chairman of Government Intellectual Property Subcommittee. At this stage, I'd also like to remind our members of the audience to silence or turn off their cell phones. And without further ado, I hand it off to Honorable Tara Rivers to start us off.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for those introductory words, and good morning, everyone. I'm really glad that you all could be here with us today, whether you're here with us in person or you're joining us via the television or internet viewing. Today, we're celebrating a new path for business in this country, while aiming to inspire our people with the preservation of items that are truly and distinctly Caymanian. Our new trademarks law came into effect in the 1st of August, 2017, which brought with it the chance for brand owners to locally register their symbols, slogans, and other elements right here in the Cayman Islands. And so this new law brings a welcome change to the process, which previously trademarks would be filed in the United Kingdom before being extended here, which resulted in a very time-consuming as well as costly exercise. So a key part of the local registration process is the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office, which was established in May of 2016 and falls under the Ministry of Financial Services and Home Affairs remit. And so the entities that wish to protect their brands in the Cayman Islands have to submit their applications to the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office to be registered. And what we've seen is really there has been a major uptick in registrations most recently. So from August 1st, so since the introduction of the new law until today, the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office has received more than 50% of what was the annual amount of new trademark applications sent in prior to the new trademark law. So the new trademarks law is definitely making an impact on our local economy and with respect to registrations. So to give you a better idea of the brands that are protected in the Cayman Islands, on the monitor to the right, you will see a host of familiar trademarks filed by companies who either operate within the country or have products that are readily available in our economy. So to protect its legitimacy, the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office was one of the first 6 trademark applications to be filed locally. The other 5 applications all emanate from our island's tourism product, specifically the distinctive Sir Turtle designs used by the Ministry of Tourism and our national carrier, Cayman Airways, and the unique logo, slogan, and the aircraft livery used by our airlines. As my colleague, Minister Kekernel, will expound upon in just a moment, the protection of these symbols is a testament and symbolic of the Cayman pride, which goes a long way in preserving our heritage, our culture, and really our way of life, and all of which are appealing to people locally as well as from those abroad and around the world. Indeed, Cayman will now be even more attractive for overseas persons and corporations looking to do business here. The Trademarks Law is really one of 4 pieces of intellectual property legislation that are now in effect and offer protection for various creations of the mind. One of those laws covers design rights, which is the unique physical appearance of a product, and for the first time in Cayman, with registration being done by way of extension from the UK. So this process still requires extension from the UK, but it does allow for these unique creations to be registered locally for the first time. While my chief officer, Dr. Dax Bazdeo, will get into the finer details of the journey to modernize the trademark protection in the Cayman Islands, the extent of Cayman's intellectual property offerings represent the achievement of a vision held by the last PPM-led coalition government, which is now really coming to fruition during this administration. The government has long heard the concerns of business owners and local creative persons who wanted to protect their work, and now we can offer the tools to do so. Indeed, the framework that we now have in place allows for trademark protection to be obtained in a cost-effective and timely manner. Instead of dealing with folks thousands of miles away, our community can benefit from the knowledge and expertise readily available on these shores. Ultimately, not only will this legislation protect creations of our people, it will also cement Cayman's place as a major economic player in the global IP stage by offering protection for international brands as well as local brands that want to register here. Our modernized IP framework will enhance our reputation as a leading jurisdiction for all types of businesses. And as someone said to me as I was walking in, we have beautiful white sand beaches. We need to extend that to silicone sand as well. And certainly, in fact, we have already achieved tremendous status within the IP world, as we have recently been invited by the International Trademark Association to be a member of its leadership committee. So the International Trademark Association is one of the world's top IP advocacy groups, representing some 7,000 organizations in 190 countries. So for Cayman to be invited into a leadership role truly speaks volumes, given that we're so young in our journey. So my hope now is that the people of these islands will take advantage of this opportunity and be more inspired to create whatever their minds desire and whatever inspiration may come to them with the form of their creative endeavors. And with that, I invite my colleague and our Deputy Premier, Honorable Moses Kirkconnell, to share with us the story behind the creation of our beloved Sir Turtle.
Thank you very much, Minister Rivers, and a very pleasant good morning to everyone. I am honored to have been invited to give a few short remarks this morning on this very important piece of regulation, and certainly congratulate the Minister and her team for bringing this forward and accomplishing this. I'll take my time and try to explain this in layman's terms of the importance of what has taken place for Cayman itself. Sir Turtle is an integral part of the history of tourism in the Cayman Islands. Turtles, as we all know, have always been a large part of Cayman's history. From the spotting by Christopher Columbus in 1503 and the naming of the island's Las Tortugas, to a staple of Caymanian diet. While turtles and trade have come and gone, one has reached the iconic statue requiring the name of Sir. The Department of Tourism recently celebrated 50 years of Sir Turtle in 2013, and today Sir Turtle is now 54 years old. I would say that if we really think about it, from 1503, the Cayman Islands have not only been associated with turtles, but we were building a pretty solid trademark from then. But there was one very special person in our community that understood what was taking place with the opportunity of turtles and how it was recognized by the Cayman Islands. The original logo was created by Miss Susie Soto in 1963. I want to recognize Miss Soto for being here today and thank her so much for all you've done. And I also want to say that she not only recognized the importance and the growth from 1503 of what turtle meant to the Cayman Islands, but she recognized that it had to live on forever for it to be a brand and for us to take advantage of it. So she sold that to the Department of Tourism, and we all are looking and know that she has tremendous success, and we were thinking, I wonder how much she really sold that for. Well, I'll tell you today, $1. $1. I don't know how much that says for her as what she has done for Cayman and what she means to the Cayman Islands and the people. Again, a very big thank you, Susie, for all you've done. I'd like to just say that it takes that kind of vision to understand what branding is and how people continue to think of certain things and put that, recognize certain products by it. So Turtle is ingrained in our tourism industry. It is the ambassador for Cayman Airways and is displayed on our aircraft livery. I thank some of the Cal people for being here today. Thank you very much, Olivia. The Department of Tourism, Cayman Islands branding, which is transported through marketing activities globally, continues to be the namesake of Cayman Airways frequent flyer program and the Sir Turtle Rewards. I acknowledge the representation from the Department of Tourism today and certainly recognize the importance it is to the department. It is important to protect such a prestigious Cayman Islands brand icon which carries the significance and imprints the milestones within our tourism industry. And I hope this helps you understand the importance of putting this as a trademark. Think about when you see a Cayman Airways plane. That Cayman Airways plane has Sir Turtle on it. Of course, it's two Sir Turtles. He's like the bear, and he's got a scarf. And what it is you know that that's going to be representative of a certain quality product that you have experienced over and over. So think if somebody was to take that turtle and put it on another plane, and you got on that plane, you would expect that you were going to have the same service and the same type of experience. Now, that can't happen anymore because now it's a trademark registered when you have the comfort of knowing when you see Sir Turtle that that's Cayman Airways. That is representative of a product that we know and understand and can take advantage of. So we're extremely pleased to be able to take advantage of that as well in our jurisdiction, which this new legislation does. The IP registry is good for business and good for tourism. Just reviewing the names of some of the other brands trademarked, it's clear our IP registry will continue to attract local and global brands, as Minister Rivers showed when she was giving her remarks of some that have already registered. Tourism-related companies will have more peace of mind operating here as their logos can be trademarked as well as the customer protection. And a simple little example of Cayman Airways and Sir Turtle, I hope, lets you think a little farther of what that means to a Marriott or a Ritz or the others that are branded and trademarked in our area. Most importantly, this will protect our tourism brand while celebrating and preserving the Cayman culture and heritage. And very simply put, when you see Sir Turtle, you can be sure it's the Cayman Islands that it's representing now because of how it's registered. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank some people who have really worked extremely hard in this. I have to mention, his real name is Donnell, but I call him Donnie my whole life. Donnie Dixon. On behalf of the Ministry and Department of Tourism, I wish to extend my sincerest thanks to Maples and Calder, Cayman Islands firm, especially partner Abraham Tuppel. Thank you very much. And obviously he is here today, as well as his team. I'd like to also thank the staff of Legal Chambers Cayman Limited for their role as the registered agents filed the Sir Turtle IP applications. And I'd like to make sure everybody knows that Sir Turtle was number 1 when it was filed. And that's this Sir Turtle, the one without the scarf, but we didn't take any chances. Number 3 is Sir Turtle with the scarf that you see on Cal's livery. And I think the ones that actually do are the ones that snuck in at number 2 and registered. So hats off to Minister Rivers and her team. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here today for this exciting piece of news. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. The modernization of intellectual property legislation in Cayman has been an interesting process. Indeed, we're at a point in history where the Cayman Islands can say that it has a suite of modern intellectual property legislation, including a trademarks law that allows for the registration of brands like Sartorial locally. As you have heard this morning, trademarks deal with brands, and Cayman has seen many of them over time. As our economy has grown and become more integrated into global trade, we have seen an increase in interest in the registration of trademarks in Cayman. The challenge has always been that most forms of intellectual property registration were dependent on a registration first being initiated in the United Kingdom. Once registered in the UK, the extension of a trademark was a straightforward process to have a mark registered in Cayman. However, with specific rules governing trademarks in the UK, this created certain challenges for trademarks extended to Cayman. For instance, UK law makes the UK registration subject to a potential challenge in the UK by a third party in the event that the owner cannot prove use in the UK within 5 years of obtaining the UK registration. Consequently, this then would have an impact on those marks extended to the Cayman Islands. A more recent challenge is the growth of the digital economy and the degree to which advances in technology has created new challenges for the protection of intellectual property. With these concerns in mind, and a view that a more modern framework for IP protection could serve to attract new business to Cayman Islands, the government went about the task of reviewing and drafting laws that could adequately protect all the various types of IP, such as trademarks, that are used in the local economy. The work of revamping our legislation was aided in large part by a dedicated committee comprised of local lawyers and the staff at the General Registry. Chaired by Mr. Abraham Topple, who is here with us today, these individuals were crucial to guiding the process of the reforms necessary to adequately protect creations of the mind in the digital age for the Cayman Islands. As Minister Rivers noted in her earlier remarks, the push to modernize our intellectual property regime is about meeting the needs of Cayman's citizens who have clamored for modern protection for their creative works. Our hope is that persons will be more motivated to create their various trademarks, knowing the process of registering them here is easier, more affordable, and ultimately more accessible. Our local registration system for trademarks will also open up additional career opportunities for Caymanians. As persons exercise the right to safeguard their intellectual property against infringement from others, they will need Cayman-based agents and counsel to assist with this process. This new field of employment may be small, but it will serve to strengthen the attractiveness of our jurisdiction to global businesses that want to ensure they have a strong international portfolio of protected intellectual property. When those trademark holders submit their applications through a registered agent of their choice, they can be certain that their documentation will be processed in an efficient and thorough manner by CIPO, the Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office. Deputy Registrar Donna Dixon and Trademark Examiner Candice Vesby, who are here with us today, are to be commended for their passion and drive to really get this going and to help make sure CIPO was established and is functioning at a high level and being recognized internationally. With that, I turn back to our moderator for the next part of our program today.
Thank you, Dr. Bastillo. At this point, we will switch into the question and answer phase of today's press conference. I have two housekeeping things to note before we proceed. Number one, for anyone in the audience that wants to ask questions, please keep it on topic. And for our media members, please state your name and the name of the organization you're representing. And with that, the floor is open.
Hello, Joe Avery, Cayman 27. I guess with this rush for new companies to register here in Cayman, I wanted to see if you could quantify the more than 50% of annual amount so far after August 1st. I didn't really get a sense of how many companies registered with that statistic.
I'll ask obviously the deputy registrar to give us those kind of technical details if he's able to provide at this time.
Just for clarity, it's not company, it's brands.
Okay, brands.
So
Sorry about that.
we have to make that
Thanks for
clear.
that.
Yeah, two different things. But annually, we took in around 300 new applications per annum. Right now, in a few weeks, we're over 150. So it's more than 50% of what we take on an annual basis.
And further to that, I guess, does government see this being a revenue stream? I know with a rush for people to register their brands, we might see a bump in income now, but will this be a prolonged kind of revenue generator for the government?
Well, I think certainly it does provide a source of revenue for the government with respect to any registrations. It is, as we did indicate, a more efficient and economical route to register your trademarks. But certainly, as you said, it's in terms of the predictability of the ebbs and flows. I think at this stage it might be a bit early to see how the prolonged actual registrations will be. But certainly, I think given the new legislation in place. And given, hopefully, with the inspiration that the local artists will have, but also international brands reaching out to register here, we would hopefully expect to see a continued process of registration. And I don't know if Dr. Dax wants to add anything to that.
If you consider that our past framework was so old that it did not account for the digital age, it was not something that international business could look at and say, I need to make sure that I'm protecting my rights in the Cayman Islands. With this new modern framework across all the four pieces that we now have in place, including trademarks, we are getting interest. We are being observed as having that modern framework, and that will serve to attract those international businesses who want to have that protection. Therefore, it can be a driver for that interest and for a revenue stream for the government.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, good morning. Ken Silva with the Cayman Compass. Can you talk a little bit about the enforcement mechanisms of this law? If somebody uses Sir Turtle up in another country, Canada, U.S., wherever, how do you get that person to stop?
I think it would be easier to turn it over to Steve to answer that question. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Candice Westby, Trademarks Examiner. Something to remember is that intellectual property protection is territorial. So in order for you to protect your brand in the other countries, you'd have to first have it registered there. I do believe that Sir Turtle is registered in countries like the US and the UK. They would have to have that protection in place in order to enforce their rights there. So the protection in the Cayman Islands is only for the Cayman Islands.
Okay, thank you. What's the fee to register a trademark?
The base fee is 200 CI for the registry, and then it's $75 for each class that you want to register, because you can register your mark in different classes.
All right. Does anybody have?
Just to follow up, April Cummings, Radio Cayman. So is it a recurring fee or a one-time only fee?
There is an annual fee that you pay on an annual basis, and it's the same with that. There's an annual fee of 200, and each class at that stage is $100. And then at the end of the 10-year period, you would have to renew. So there would be a renewal fee if you want to continue to have your mark protected.
Thank you.
Hello again. The uptick in applications, do you have to re-register under the new legislation?
You're not re-registering. What we did, all of the marks that were on the register before that were still active came across, and then they would renew automatically when that renewal date comes up. Any marks that were expired prior to August 1st, then they would have to make a new application to come onto the new register. They were not brought across.
Okay, got you. So the uptake in applications, that is new business.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And lastly, I don't know who might be able to speak to this, but there's kind of the democratic ideal that since the public, the citizens fund government, they own government, and therefore, even if it's $1, if public funds are used to buy a brand, then everybody owns that brand and everybody should have the right to use something like Sir Turtle. Does anybody have a response to that?
I will take the question. The brand itself is registered by the Cayman Islands. The cabinet is the one that would have to give permission for it to be used on behalf of the people of the Cayman Islands.
Thank you.
Joe Avery again with Cayman 27. Have there been any disputes yet in terms of somebody maybe squatting on another person's brand? Are there nefarious entities that do that practice and then kind of hold their brand hostage, like, oh, pay me and I'll sell you, Coca-Cola or whatever per se? Has any of that taken place, or do you foresee any of that type activity?
Not as yet, and I suspect we'll have some objections to some marks. Wherever there's registrations of trademarks, you will get some people opposing whether the mark is identical or similar. So we expect to have some of that as we go forward. Right now, the sea is calm.
Can you give me a breakdown as well? Out of the 150 companies to register, how many are of Cayman origin and how many are international players? Or brands, rather?
Brands. Right now, the first 6 are local. There's some other local ones in there, but I can't give you the specific at this time, but we can certainly pass it to those stats to the comms unit to forward on to you. No problem.
Sorry, one more kind of process question. Is this something that an artist or an individual can do themselves, or do they have to go through attorneys and other folks? How complicated is the process is really what I'm getting at.
I wouldn't want to use the word complicated, but I'd use the word complex. Right now, to register a trademark, you have to use an agent, and it actually saves the individual a lot of time, a lot of money, because use an agent, that individual can know right off the bat whether the mark is registrable, rather than they're trying to fill out the forms, and there's many forms, and bring those in, and then we would have to then examine it, which would cost you more money if we have to do an office action on it. So the process of using an agent to do it really simplifies the process for the individual. It makes life really easy. And we're not the only jurisdiction that does that. There's other jurisdictions that does that as well. And it really helps the individual. I would say, that in terms of speed, right off the bat, they will know what classes they can do and how they can do it, and if what they're submitting is okay for registration.
And a quick follow-up. Any idea, I know it's not your cost, but any idea of the range of those costs, what the market's bearing at the moment?
I wouldn't, but maybe Mr. Topple can shed a little light on that.
Thank you. I think it's a difficult question to answer because we have 45 classes under which you can register a trademark. So it's all very client specific. And I think the big picture, if you look at how the trademark is going to impact the offshore financial service industry in a big way, because a lot of these marks, many of them actually don't do business in Cayman. And you're going to ask the question, why do they register in Cayman? The new trademark now allows for the creation of what we call a securities register for your trademarks. So what you can effectively do is that you can actually take your trademark to the bank and cash it and get a loan from the bank. And the banks are willing to do it now because you have a securities register, which is where you can register the trademark as having a security interest owned by the bank. So again, if going back to your question of cost, it all depends on what the instructions are. And most of the agents, I believe the majority of them are attorneys at law, so it just depends on the law firms what they charge.
Hello again. How old was the old legislation? Previous legislation?
I think it dates back to the 1970s, if I'm not mistaken. But I would say it's very old.
Okay, fair enough.
It was very old.
All right. And besides making it easier for local brands to register, are there any other changes that this new legislation has brought into effect? I know the BVI recently updated their legislation, was more than 100 years old, and previously you couldn't even register service marks. Are there any changes like that?
Now you can register, well, you could register anything that was accepted in the UK or the EU prior to the new Trademarks Law. You can still do the same, except I think for smell and sound marks, which we don't register here, but that's accepted in the UK. But we register service marks, we register words, labels, images, you name it, you can register it as a trademark.
Okay, great. And last question, kind of a random question, but if a multinational corporation wants to set up a holding company for their IP here and put their trademarks in a Cayman company, do they need to register that here?
They just need to register the IP holding company with the registrar of companies. That's got nothing to do with the trademark registration law.
Okay, thank you.
Now, let's just say, for instance, a news reporter wanted to get Sir Turtle tattooed on himself. Would he be prosecuted?
Did you get permission from the Honorable Mayor and Cabinet?
It would depend on the news reporter.
Well, folks, that was a very entertaining press conference. On that note, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I'd like to thank all of those who are watching via television as well. And I just want to wish you all a blessed day and take care.